Hello and welcome to this month, August, creative art collaboration. This is my contribution and it's how I did a watercolor painting. The watercolor painting, which I'll put up on the screen, probably at this side, is from a photo that I took a while ago, and I was really interested in the amount of colours that were coming off the leaves. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get on with it. So here are some of the tools that I'm using. I've got some Derwent pencils for doing some finishing work. I've got this embossing tool and several different brushes, a small angle brush, a larger one, a feathering brush, and a brush to get some nice big washes on, like that one. I'm also, with the background, going to use these brushes. If you can see these, yeah, 3 different colours. There's turquoise, brilliant red and leaf green, which is very appropriate for the image that we're going to be doing. I'm making a start with the initial drawing. I'm not going to be doing great amounts of detail at this stage. We can add detail later, so it's just basically mapping out the things that we need on the painting. I'm doing the actual drawing on a separate piece of paper so that I'm not getting lots of pencil on the watercolor paper. So this will be transferred later, as you'll see. Okay, let's speed this section up so that the video doesn't take up several hours. We see now we can draw things at this stage, so we're going to go into fast mode. At this stage of the drawing, it's about getting the shapes where I want them. It's not really about doing any detail, so I'm working very loosely, just getting basic shapes that I think will eventually look like the end product. So at this time it's not really important to be doing finicky little details. It's really about getting everything in the right position. So we're progressing through the drawing, checking the reference photo for key details so that we can actually fit them in a position. So we've got a good reference when we do all the more closer details. But we don't need to be doing heavy amounts of drawing. As you can see, this is very basic shapes. Well, I hope you can see what I'm drawing here. I'm drawing it slightly heavier than what I would do, so that you can actually see it on screen. But you don't need to put that much pressure on. It's just a basic drawing, so that you've got a good idea where things are going to go. This is really, this stage, almost complete. So we'll be moving on in a short while to the next phase. Now it's time to trace round the original drawing, and I'm using tracing paper to go over the drawing onto some transparent paper. This will then be used to transfer the artwork to the watercolor paper that I'll be using, but we'll see how we do that. But for the time being, we're going to go back into speeded up mode. These are some watercolour paints that I've mixed together in some pans, and they represent the colours that I think I might need for doing this particular painting. Yellows, some reds, bits of greens, and even some blues. So I'm prepared with a custom made palette of colours, so I should be fine with that. What I'm going to do now is turn over the tracing that I did and get a pencil and rub that pencil on it. So I'm using this graphite pencil, quite a big thing if you can see that, and I'll just be going around the edges so that I can make a graphite imprint. So let's crack on with that then. I'm not covering all of it, I'm just going around the bits where I've drawn, making sure that I definitely get it all. And then when it comes to actually adding this to the watercolour paper, you're not getting graphite all over it. And it also saves money because you're not filling the entire page with graphite. And the next stage will be to apply this to the watercolour paper, although I will have to set the watercolour paper up. That's ready, we'll reverse it onto the watercolour paper and it'll do what that's just done. As you can see on my hands, I've got bits of graphite all over it, so it's a good thing before you start using good quality paper to give your hands a good wash and get rid of as much of it as you can, because it can stain it. So what I'm demonstrating here is, before I actually go into a main painting, if I'm not absolutely sure about what techniques I'm going to use or what style or any other thing that I'm not quite sure about, I'll go away and I'll use some basic quality equipment and do a study of part of the actual image as a preliminary, so I've got a rough idea of what I will be doing later, and you can test all sorts of techniques out. Time now to prepare the paper that we're going to be painting on, and I've chosen to use this Coatman by Winsor & Newton, £140 or 300 GSM. Apparently you're not supposed to handle paper, watercolour paper that's delicate like this, but I've never had a problem with it, but that's all down to the people who do archiving and all that sort of stuff. Right, let's get this taped down to the board that I'm going to be using. Shouldn't be that big a deal, this. So this is the tape I'm using. It looks like old gum tape, but this has got its own adhesive on it, which is a lot better than the gum tape that you used to use. Horrible stuff. So straight down. I suppose you could use decorator's masking tape for this, but it sometimes lets you down, that. So if you're going to get that, make sure you get some good quality one. Right, let's put the tracing onto the watercolour paper and find a nice position that's compositionally nice. And once you're happy with that, I think that's about right. Just going to anchor it down while I'm doing this. Bet I've moved it. There you go. Doesn't really matter. It's only temporary. To make sure it goes back where it goes if it moves. So, and I can also use that and go like that and look to see whether I've done it or not. So that's a good way of dealing with that kind of thing. So we're going to go through that process again of drawing those basic lines. So let's do that. Making sure I stay within the graphite that I put in the back of it, because if you try drawing that, now I made a mistake there. I didn't put any graphite there, so it won't come up that, but it don't matter, I can draw that in later. So one to learn from, isn't it, that? So we keep doing this. I know it seems as though we're repeating what we're doing, but this really is the easiest way of getting a drawing done accurately, so you're not damaging the watercolour paper and transferring it over. Yeah, for me, if you can see that at the moment, that's roughly all I need. So we've got the drawing transferred basically onto the watercolour paper. We can put detail in at this point if we want to, but I might try doing this by painting the detail in rather than drawing it in. In saying that, some drawing detail does look nice in this kind of painting. So all I have to do now is just remove that and we are ready to paint. So, and I like how there's lots of space around the area of the central painting, so I can feather that out into a nice washy background for it, which I think might work quite nicely. but we'll see how that goes. So once you're happy with the overall line work and you roughly know where you're going to be painting, what I recently learnt, and this will help later on, is I don't know if you can see that, it's like an embossing tool. This one's by Derwent, but you can get lots of these, various sizes, and what you do is, not on the outline of the leaf itself, but where the veins are, you digging hard into it. Not massively hard, but enough to make an imprint into it. And when you're painting, it kind of gravitates towards that and emphasises it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to line out all these areas. So I think that's roughly all the main line work done for that. So we'll finish doing that at this point. What you'll see that I'm doing is I'm just adding dabs of brush around outer edge. I'm hoping it's just going to be around outer edge. And that'll activate when we get some water squirted on it. I'll get another colour. I'm applying this dry with a brush to see whether it has a different effect than the normal arrangement. But, we'll see. Can go a little bit crazy, this brush stuff, so we'll just have to see what happens and control the liquid as best we can. Right, so this bit here is a little bit too strong for me, so I'm going to take out as much of it as I can. There you go. just see if I can put a little bit. Oh, that's a bit, quite a bit. I'll dab away at areas that are a bit strong, because it does tend to do that a little bit, but it's easily enough adjusted whenever it's wet. One of them things you've got to work with it while it's wet. Now I'm going to leave that to dry. I'll make a start on this leaf here. What I'm doing at this point is putting in very, very light watery washes, and as you can notice there, some of the brush actually activated with the paint, which it went really nice, that, because it kind of gave it a bit of a thing that could join the background to the actual main leaf itself. So it's important at this stage to do very, very light watery washes. I try to cover as much space as I possibly can with fairly big brushes. You can buy them and they're called mop brushes. At this stage I'm trying to stain and cover the watercolor paper with very light washes, very, very watery, so that they interact with each other and give a nice underglow to the rest of the painting, where the detailing will be and the texture, and you'll see later on how that actually helps out at this stage. So I'm using my angle brush just to encourage the paint to move around a little bit at the moment. So I've used the mop brush, but now you can see me using this angle brush. It's a small one, and you can be a little bit more detailed with this. When you're using the mop brush, it kind of is used for covering large areas and detailing in one of its best qualities. So that's why I'm using this angle brush. And as you can see, at this moment in time I'm concentrating on yellows and greens, which is strange because it doesn't really have that much yellow and green in it, but we'll see how that builds up later. So now I've moved on to this next leaf, and I'm using the mop brush again to fill out colour, and also I'm using the greens and yellows and that's because I want to create a base tone throughout the entire piece of artwork that really brings the full painting together as a colour set. So that's the reason why I'm using this yellow and green in the majority of the painting as a background. As I see areas of interest, I'll drop bits of painting to the main area of the leaf and see whether that can adjust or make it more interesting. I will also use the mop brush to remove various areas. As you can see at this moment in time, I'm getting rid of pools of water and bits of paint that I don't think I want in there. This is a process that we've been looking at that will keep repeating and building layer after layer after layer, and eventually you'll get textures and bits of colour showing through, and it really ends up very nice, although at this moment in time it doesn't look very much of anything. So here what I'm doing, and I apologise for it going a bit fuzzy on you, is just getting one or two of the background leaves that I'd like to link in into the background a little bit, so there's a nice connection between the background and the main set of leaves in the foreground and centre. So that's basically what I'm doing at the moment. So you keep adding paint, applying it, and then getting water and pulling bits of it out that are not needed, and that will help you create all sorts of nice values in your end painting. So although I'm not doing it here, you can dab the paint with tissue paper or cotton buds that are wet and create all sorts of textural patterns which add a lot of interest to the end painting. You can also start to define some of the darker areas as well once you're happy that you've got some of your light areas in. What I will try to do is avoid different leaves from bleeding into one another, so I'm trying to keep the paintings fairly separate, and I'm allowing a bit of time for the leaves that I'm individually painting to dry to some extent. Now I'm going to start doing the redder leaves that are in the painting. I'm still using that base coat of yellow, but this time rather than using the green, I'm going to add the bits of brush and the red that's coming off of the edge that I did. So it still has that yellowy undertone, but with the red this time. And again, I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't bleed into any other leaf, so it's got its own definition. At the same time adding little bits of areas of interest that will come along later as texture or highlights or lowlights. So that's that bit of the painting well formed now. It actually looks like a leaf. We're moving on to the next leaf now, and this one has a reddish orange, but again it still has some yellow in it, just to help key it into the rest of the painting. And it's picking up some of the background from the green there. I didn't necessarily want that, but it adds to it, and you can adjust things at a later date if you don't like the specific thing that it creates anyway. So we'll go with the flow for the moment. As you can see again, I'm putting water on the brush and removing the excess paint so you can get some nice textures. You can't really see it in this video, but it does create some really interesting crackly textures in the paint. Here you'll see that I'm applying some stronger, less watery paint that has a lot more strong reds and oranges in it, as this particular leaf has a fairly red orientated coloration. We're still in the blocking in stage of colour in the painting, and there's still quite a bit to be done in the bottom half of the painting, but most of the top is done as regards blocking in the colour. We'll have to put texture and tone and detail into the painting, but that will come at a later stage. So just as a reminder, most of these are very thin washes that you can actually remove and do patterns in, and they glaze over one another, so you can work with these a long time, various levels of glazes. So it's always worth reworking and looking for new areas that might have interest. The technique you can use with watercolouring is adding the water first and then let the paint be dropped into the actual water, and that's one way of controlling how you can paint the different leaves, because I am wanting to try to make sure that none of the leaves bleed into one another. So I've applied water, and then I will add paint to it, although that was a bit of brush show that you've just seen. In the middle of the scene is a leaf that I found really strange in colour. I used like a duck egg blue to paint the undertone for this. It were a blue and purple leaf, which I've never seen before, but it really adds to the colour of the photograph. So I wanted to keep that colour definitely in the painting. So I'm blocking in this duck egg blue, as you can see at this moment in time, over the bits of water that I've already applied to that area, so it doesn't bleed out of the area that I've defined. So after putting the wash in, I'm going back in with a slightly more detailed brush again, the angle brush, and I'm also going to put some other tonal colours in. This is like a slightly light green colour, maybe a sap green, and just adds that little bit of interest to it, although it didn't have that colour in it originally. I'll add a little bit of blue and a bit of purple to this area here. Now I'm adding some darker blues to this strange coloured leaf. It literally, if you look at the photograph, is like a turquoise blue with a darker blue texture over the top of it with little bits of purple. So it's a pretty weird leaf, really, but it does add that extra bit of interest to the photo. In fact, it's my favourite bit of the photo. So we've been working with other areas of the picture, and now we're gonna start reworking areas that we've already painted and build those layers up. And really, that's the painting as a whole. That's basically the painting and the techniques you really need. It's just going through that same cycle that I've gone through to show you just here, and then we might do bits of detailing, but from here on I'll probably do quite a bit of speed work on this now. I'm continuing to add extra layers of colour which will show through on the final painting and creates extra textures and things that can interact. Now I'm going to concentrate on blocking in and getting little bits of areas done that are not quite as well worked. So I'll finish up the white area and get some leaves in there, and make sure that the vast majority of the rest of the painting is blocked in to a reasonable degree, and then we've got all the blocking in work done. I'm starting to block in some of the darker tonal areas now so that I can get some definition in the leaves, and these will act as shadows and breaks between each individual leaf, and also help create three-dimensional space so that things are on top of one another. I'm blocking in more and more colours that I feel will enhance the overall picture, and I do apologise again for the images going in and out. Don't know why, because it's not set up to be like that. So we can see I'm getting some of the nice autumny brown colours in, and I'm just blocking in more and more colours and removing and adding and removing and adding, and this building up of layers will help in the overall end picture. As you'll see, I'm using a tissue paper in various areas to pull off paper. It creates a really nice texture while it's wet. Keep adding and removing and putting darker tones and lighter tones in, and adding more water so that it can keep spreading out, and you're slowly but surely building up a painting that will have lots of texture and a really expressive set of colours, as you can start to see in the painting that's starting to form, I hope. And here you see some darker areas to get the definition of that leaf in place. Now that I'm happy with all the washes of colour from the watercolours, I'm going to add bits of detailing in with these Derwent watercolour pencils. They do add that extra dimension of detailing, control, and really helps with the texture when you're painting these things. And again, this is a thing that you would do in layers throughout the entire painting. I'm using a wet brush here to go over some of the pencil work that I've done, just to blend it in ever so slightly, because it can be quite strong against all those delicate washes that we've put on the paper itself. So it's just a little bit of blending in, and that is really all that needs to be done with that. Use different colours obviously on the different leaves. So that's it. I'm signing it. It's complete, and I'll show you a finished version of it at the end of this video. So thank you for enduring the full over 50 minutes that this has taken for you to watch. And if you like what you see, I will be doing more videos at some point, so keep in touch and subscribe or like or pass on a comment to me. Let me know what you think. So I'm very grateful for your time, and keep doing your heart, and it inspires me, and I'm sure it inspires many others. So thank you and goodbye.